Imagine a small city-state, surrounded by enemies and threatened by neighboring tribes. A civilization born amidst chaos that, in just a few centuries, would dominate the entire known world. How did Rome achieve this feat? How did an insignificant settlement on the banks of the Tiber River become the greatest empire of antiquity? Today, we'll dive into Rome's impressive journey, from its mythical foundation to its relentless expansion. Rome's journey begins around 753 BCE, according to the legend of Romulus and Remus. At first, it was merely a small settlement in the Latium region, ruled by kings. But over time, Rome transformed into a republic, establishing an efficient political and military structure. For centuries, it expanded its borders, defeated powerful rivals, and created one of the largest empires in history. The story of Rome's rise is one of remarkable adaptation and strategic genius. From its humble beginnings, perched on 7 hills beside the Tiber, the Roman civilization developed unique advantages that propelled it to unprecedented power. The geography of Rome provided natural defenses while allowing for agricultural prosperity and trade. Located at the crossroads of various cultures, Rome absorbed and adapted the best elements from neighboring societies, including the Etruscans and Greeks. Rome's transformation from monarchy to republic around 509 BCE marked a crucial turning point. The Republic, with its complex system of checks and balances, created a stable framework for expansion. The Senate, consisting of aristocratic patricians, provided continuity in leadership, while the various assemblies gave plebeians a voice in governance. This system, though imperfect, prevented the concentration of power and fostered a sense of civic duty among Romans. The early Roman military was primarily a citizen militia, with soldiers serving to protect their lands and families. As Rome grew, its military evolved into a sophisticated professional force. The Roman legion became the most formidable fighting unit of its time, combining discipline, innovative tactics, and advanced weaponry. The maniple system, which replaced the Greek phalanx, provided flexibility on the battlefield, while Roman engineering skills allowed armies to build roads, bridges, and fortifications with unprecedented speed. Rome's expansion was not simply a story of military conquest. Roman diplomacy was equally important. Instead of merely subjugating conquered peoples, Rome often extended partial or full citizenship, creating a network of allies with vested interests in Rome's success. This policy of inclusion, though primarily self-serving, distinguished Rome from other ancient empires and contributed to its longevity. The Punic Wars against Carthage tested Rome like never before. These conflicts, especially the Second Punic War when Hannibal crossed the Alps with elephants, nearly destroyed Rome. Yet Rome's resilience prevailed, and the defeat of Carthage gave Rome control over the Western Mediterranean. Subsequent conquests in Greece, Asia Minor, and Egypt made Rome the dominant power across the entire Mediterranean basin. During this period of expansion, Rome faced internal challenges as well. Social tensions between patricians and plebeians required continuous negotiation. Land reforms, attempted by the Gracchi brothers in the 2nd century BCE, highlighted growing economic disparities. The rise of powerful generals like Marius and Sulla exposed weaknesses in the republican system, foreshadowing the civil wars that would eventually lead to the rise of Julius Caesar and the establishment of the empire under Augustus. Rome's cultural evolution paralleled its political and military development. Initially adopting Etruscan and Greek cultural elements, Rome eventually developed its own distinctive identity. Roman pragmatism transformed Greek philosophical ideas into practical applications. Engineering feats like aqueducts, public baths, and the extensive road network demonstrated Roman ingenuity. Latin literature, with figures like Cicero, Virgil, and Horace, created a cultural golden age during the late Republic and early Empire. The transition from Republic to Empire under Augustus stabilized Rome after decades of civil conflict. The Pax Romana that followed allowed for unprecedented prosperity and cultural flourishing. At its height in the 2nd century CE, the Roman Empire encompassed over 5 million square kilometers, with a population of approximately 70 million people representing diverse cultures, religions, and traditions. What's particularly fascinating is how many Roman strategies still influence our society today. From political organization to military tactics, from legal principles to architectural designs, the Romans shaped the modern world in ways we can hardly imagine. The concept of separation of powers in government, the foundations of civil law, urban planning principles, and infrastructure development all bear Rome's imprint. Even modern languages, including English, owe much to Latin, the language of Rome. As we explore Rome's ascent from obscurity to global dominance, we'll uncover the ingenious adaptations, brutal conflicts, and cultural innovations that made this extraordinary transformation possible. This is not merely a story of the past, but one that continues to shape our present and future. To comprehend Rome's ascent, we must visualize its setting. Rome emerged in a strategic location, surrounded by 7 hills and adjacent to the Tiber River. This positioning ensured protection against invasions and facilitated trade, connecting the city to the Mediterranean world and beyond. The iconic 7 hills, Palatine, Capitoline, Aventine, Caelian, Esquiline, Quirinal, and Viminal, formed a natural defensive perimeter that early Romans cleverly incorporated into their settlement planning. The Palatine Hill, where archaeological evidence suggests the earliest Roman habitation occurred, offered elevated ground with clear sightlines across the surrounding plains. Modern excavations on the Palatine have uncovered remnants of Iron Age huts dating to the 8th century BCE, aligning with the traditional founding date of 753 BCE. The Tiber River served multiple crucial functions. It provided fresh water, facilitated waste removal, enabled local transportation, and most importantly, gave Rome access to the sea via the port at Ostia, approximately 16 miles downstream. This river connection allowed Rome to participate in Mediterranean trade networks early in its development, acquiring resources and cultural influences that contributed to its growth. Archaeological investigations at Ostia Antica have revealed extensive harbor facilities, warehouses, and trading posts that evolved over centuries as Rome's commercial reach expanded. Archaeologists have unearthed impressive remnants from this era, such as the ruins of the Roman Forum, the political and social heart of the city. Initially a marsh between the Palatine and Capitoline hills, the Forum area was drained via the Cloaca Maxima, one of the world's earliest sewage systems, constructed under Etruscan influence in the 6th century BCE. Excavations have revealed how the Forum evolved from a simple marketplace to an elaborate complex of temples, basilicas, and monuments. The Temple of Saturn, with portions dating to 497 BCE, stands as one of the oldest surviving structures in the Forum, while the Regia contains foundations dating to the monarchical period. Remains of ancient walls reveal the defenses that protected Rome in its early years. The Servian Wall, constructed of massive tufa blocks in the early 4th century BCE following the Gallic invasion, enclosed an area of approximately 426 hectares. Archaeological investigations have identified over 40 sections of this wall throughout modern Rome, allowing scholars to reconstruct the city's early boundaries. Later, as Rome expanded, the Aurelian walls constructed in the 3rd century CE would enclose a much larger area of 1,744 hectares, reflecting the city's growth. Additionally, artifacts such as armor, coins, and inscriptions offer valuable clues about Roman organization. Early Roman bronze helmets discovered in warrior tombs show Etruscan influence, while later legionary equipment demonstrates standardization that facilitated Rome's military efficiency. Numismatic evidence, particularly the transition from bronze ingots, as rude, to struck coinage in the 3rd century BCE, reflects the formalization of Rome's economy. Epigraphic discoveries, such as the Lapis Niger inscription from the 6th century BCE, provide our earliest examples of Latin writing and insight into archaic religious practices. An intriguing detail: Romans were engineering masters from early on. During the Republic, they constructed roads that still exist today. The Via Appia, initiated in 312 BCE by censor Appius Claudius Caecus, demonstrates sophisticated engineering with its multiple layers of crushed stone, gravel, and paving stones set in mortar. Archaeological analysis has revealed that these roads were constructed with slight elevation at the center to allow rainwater drainage and deep foundations that allowed them to withstand centuries of use. These roads were crucial for military and economic expansion of the empire, enabling rapid troop deployment and facilitating trade across vast territories. Recent archaeological techniques have expanded our understanding of early Rome. Ground-penetrating radar has identified previously unknown structures beneath later construction. Environmental archaeology, analyzing pollen samples and food, remains from archaeological contexts, has revealed changing agricultural patterns and diet composition as Rome grew. DNA analysis of skeletal remains has demonstrated the genetic diversity of Rome's population, confirming historical accounts of the city's multicultural character from its earliest days. The material culture of early Rome also reflects its evolution from a rustic settlement to a sophisticated urban center. Early pottery shows simple designs and local production, while later periods reveal increasing importation of luxury goods and the development of distinctive Roman styles. The transition from simple mud brick and timber dwellings to more elaborate stone construction with atrium designs demonstrates the adoption of Hellenistic architectural influences combined with practical Roman innovations. Archaeological discoveries continue to refine our understanding of Rome's development. Recent excavations beneath the imperial forums have uncovered evidence of pre-Roman settlements and early urban planning. Advances in archaeological science, including radiocarbon dating, dendrochronology, and isotope analysis, provide increasingly precise chronologies that sometimes challenge traditional historical narratives about Rome's growth. These archaeological elements collectively paint a vivid picture of a settlement that capitalized on its geographic advantages, incorporated influences from neighboring cultures, and steadily developed the infrastructure and organization that would ultimately support a vast empire. Roman history is replete with visionary leaders and formidable antagonists whose actions shaped not only the destiny of Rome, but the course of Western civilization. These figures, from brilliant generals to cunning politicians, from reformers to revolutionaries, embodied the complex virtues and vices that defined Roman society. Julius Caesar stands among the most iconic names in Rome's storied past. Born to a patrician family that had fallen from prominence, Caesar's meteoric rise demonstrates the social mobility possible within the Republic's competitive system. His military campaigns in Gaul showcased exceptional tactical intelligence, resulting in the conquest of vast territories and the submission of hundreds of tribes. Beyond military prowess, Caesar possessed remarkable political acumen and personal charisma that won him devoted followers across social classes. His famous crossing of the Rubicon in 49 BCE, declaring "the die is cast," marked the fateful challenge to the Republic's institutions that would ultimately transform Rome's governance. His reforms as dictator, including the Julian calendar and citizenship extensions, demonstrated his administrative vision. Caesar's assassination on the Ides of March in 44 BCE by senators fearful of his growing power became one of history's most dramatic political murders, but ironically accelerated the Republic's collapse rather than preserving it. Before Caesar, however, Rome produced numerous extraordinary leaders whose contributions were equally consequential. Scipio Africanus exemplifies the Republic at its finest, a patrician who rose through merit to save Rome in its darkest hour. During the Second Punic War, the young Scipio took command in Spain after his father's death in battle. Displaying tactical genius, he captured New Carthage in a daring assault and subsequently drove Carthaginian forces from the Iberian Peninsula. His crowning achievement came at Zama in 202 BCE, where he defeated Hannibal, the brilliant Carthaginian general who had terrorized Rome for 16 years, on African soil. This victory earned Scipio the honorific Africanus and secured Rome's dominance in the Western Mediterranean. The transformation from republic to empire cannot be understood without examining Octavian, later known as Augustus. Caesar's grandnephew and adopted son navigated the treacherous aftermath of the dictator's assassination with political genius rarely matched in history. Initially aligning with Mark Antony to defeat Caesar's assassins at Philippi, Octavian later outmaneuvered his former ally, ultimately defeating him and Cleopatra at Actium in 31 BCE. His subsequent restructuring of Rome's government represents a masterclass in political evolution, maintaining republican forms while establishing monarchical substance. Augustus's reign brought the much-celebrated Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and prosperity that allowed Roman civilization to flourish. His patronage of arts and literature through figures like Maecenas created Rome's golden age of poetry, with Virgil, Horace, and Ovid producing their masterpieces. Women, though constrained by Rome's patriarchal structure, nonetheless exerted significant influence. Cornelia, mother of the reformist Gracchi brothers, embodied republican virtue and education, famously declaring her sons were her jewels rather than material wealth. Livia, Augustus's wife, wielded considerable behind-the-scenes power during the early empire, helping establish the precedent of imperial women's influence. In later periods, Julia Domna, wife of Emperor Septimius Severus, maintained a philosophical salon and shaped imperial policy during the Severan dynasty. Rome's expansion brought it into conflict with equally impressive foreign leaders. Hannibal Barca remains perhaps history's greatest tactical genius, whose 15-year campaign in Italy demonstrated how one exceptional individual could threaten Rome's existence. His crossing of the Alps with elephants in 218 BCE stands as one of military history's most audacious maneuvers. His victories at Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and especially Cannae, where he annihilated a Roman army nearly twice the size of his own, revealed the limitations of Rome's military system and forced its evolution. The Hellenistic world produced formidable opponents to Roman expansion. King Pyrrhus of Epirus achieved victories so costly they gave us the term Pyrrhic victory. Philip V and Perseus of Macedon resisted Roman encroachment into Greece, while Mithridates VI of Pontus waged determined wars against Roman power in the eastern Mediterranean. Queen Cleopatra VII of Egypt, the last of the Ptolemaic dynasty, leveraged her relationships with both Caesar and Mark Antony in sophisticated attempts to preserve Egyptian independence from Roman domination. Beyond Rome's borders, tribal leaders mounted significant resistance to imperial expansion. Vercingetorix united Gallic tribes against Caesar's conquest, nearly succeeding at Alesia in 52 BCE before his ultimate defeat. In Britain, Boudicca led a devastating rebellion against Roman occupation in 60 to 61 CE that temporarily threatened to reverse the Claudian conquest. In Germany, Arminius inflicted one of Rome's most catastrophic defeats at the Teutoburg Forest in 9 CE, destroying 3 legions and permanently halting Roman expansion beyond the Rhine. The late Republic's political conflicts produced remarkable individuals whose rivalry shaped Rome's transition to empire. The populist reforms of Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus challenged the senatorial oligarchy in the 130s, 120s BCE, establishing precedents that later politicians would exploit. Marius, the third founder of Rome, reformed the military to include landless citizens, creating a professional army loyal to its generals rather than the state. His rival Sulla marched on Rome itself in 88 BCE, setting the precedent for civil war that later figures like Caesar would follow. The early empire witnessed both extraordinary rulers and horrific tyrants. Trajan expanded Roman territory to its greatest extent, while Hadrian consolidated frontiers and promoted cultural flourishing. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, defended Roman borders while composing his Stoic Meditations. Conversely, Caligula and Nero exemplified the dangers of unchecked power, demonstrating how the imperial system could produce both enlightened governance and nightmarish despotism. These historical figures acted within complex power structures and cultural contexts. The Roman Senate, though diminished under the empire, remained an arena where political careers were made through oratorical skill, as demonstrated by Cicero's rise to prominence. Military commands provided another path to power, with successful generals gaining wealth, clientele, and political leverage. Social reformers like the Gracchi brothers highlighted systemic tensions within Roman society, while conservative traditionalists like Cato the Elder and Younger embodied resistance to changing mores. Indeed, if not for certain decisive battles and the exceptional leaders who fought them, Rome might have been destroyed before ever becoming an empire. The victory over Hannibal at Zama, Marius's defeat of the Cimbri and Teutones at Aquae Sextiae and Vercelli, and Caesar's conquest of Gaul all preserved and expanded Roman power at critical junctures. Similarly, Augustus's victory at Actium over Antony and Cleopatra prevented potential fragmentation of Roman territories. These historical figures continue to fascinate us because they embodied quintessential human qualities: ambition, courage, vision, ruthlessness, patriotism, and hubris on an epic scale. Their decisions shaped not just Rome's destiny, but established precedents, institutions, and cultural traditions that would influence European and global civilization for millennia to come. Rome did not grow solely through military force. Its success resulted from a combination of factors, including its flexible policy approach to conquered territories. This multifaceted strategy for expansion and governance represents one of history's most successful imperial models, combining military might with political accommodation, cultural assimilation, and technological innovation. Rome's approach to conquered peoples differentiates it from many ancient empires. While Assyria, Persia, and other powers typically ruled through fear and extraction, Rome developed a sophisticated system of graduated citizenship and rights. After conquering new territories, Rome often offered citizenship to local elites or entire communities, creating a network of allies rather than merely subjugating enemies. This policy was not born of altruism, but pragmatic self-interest. By giving conquered peoples a stake in Roman success, Rome reduced the costs of occupation and gained loyal subjects who would fight for Roman interests. The Latin Rite exemplifies this approach. Communities granted this status received commercial rights, intermarriage privileges, and potential pathways to full citizenship. The status of civitas sine suffragio provided another intermediate step, allowing communities to maintain local autonomy while integrating into the broader Roman system. Full citizenship, with its legal protections and political rights, was extended gradually over centuries, culminating in Emperor Caracalla's edict in 212 CE, granting citizenship to nearly all free inhabitants of the empire. This flexible approach allowed Rome to absorb diverse cultures while maintaining imperial cohesion. Local elites could maintain status by adopting Roman customs and language, a process scholars call Romanization. Archaeological evidence demonstrates this process through the spread of Roman architectural styles, bathing customs, and material culture across territories from Britain to Syria. However, this cultural exchange worked in both directions. Rome adopted deities, foods, military techniques, and philosophical ideas from conquered peoples, creating a dynamic imperial culture that evolved over time. The Punic Wars represented pivotal moments in this expansion. For more than a century, Rome and Carthage fought for control of the Mediterranean in three major conflicts. These wars transformed Rome from an Italian power to a Mediterranean empire. The First Punic War gave Rome control of Sicily, its first overseas province. The Second Punic War, despite Hannibal's spectacular initial victories, ultimately extended Roman power across Iberia and North Africa. The Third Punic War ended with Carthage's complete destruction, demonstrating the potential brutality behind Rome's usually more accommodating approach. These conflicts accelerated Rome's imperial development in multiple ways. Militarily, the wars forced improvements in naval technology, logistics, and tactical flexibility. Politically, managing new overseas territories led to the development of the provincial system, with governors administering regions outside Italy. Economically, victory brought immense wealth through plunder, tribute, and new trade opportunities, fueling further expansion while transforming Roman society itself. Rome's success also depended on its infrastructure for maintaining control over vast territories. The famous Roman roads connected the entire empire, enabling rapid troop movement and efficient commerce. The road system, eventually encompassing over 250,000 miles of paved highways, represents one of history's greatest engineering achievements. Major arteries like the Via Appia, Via Flaminia, and Via Egnatia facilitated both military responses to threats and economic integration across diverse regions. This infrastructure created a virtuous cycle of expansion and consolidation. Roads allowed faster deployment of legions to troubled areas, reducing the number of troops needed for provincial security. The same roads facilitated trade, increasing economic prosperity and tax revenues. Standardized milestones, roadside stations, and maintenance systems ensured reliable communication across vast distances. The famous expression, "all roads lead to Rome," reflected a literal truth. The network radiated from the capital, physically embodying Rome's centralized power structure. Beyond roads, Rome constructed harbors, aqueducts, forums, and defensive structures that transformed landscapes across the Mediterranean world. The port at Ostia handled massive grain shipments from Egypt and North Africa that fed Rome's growing population. Aqueducts, such as the magnificent Pont du Gard in southern France, brought fresh water to urban centers, improving public health and enabling population growth. Provincial capitals featured standardized elements, theaters, bathhouses, temples, and administrative buildings that served both practical functions and symbolized Roman authority. Rome's expansion also benefited from its adaptive military organization. The Roman legion evolved from a citizen militia into a professional fighting force with specialized units, standardized equipment, and sophisticated tactics. By the late Republic, legions included heavy infantry, light troops, and allied cavalry, providing tactical flexibility across different terrain and against varied opponents. Legionary fortresses doubled as centers of Romanization, with civilian settlements growing alongside military installations. The Roman state demonstrated remarkable institutional flexibility throughout its expansion. The Republican Constitution, with its checks and balances between consuls, senate, and assemblies, managed to adapt to the challenges of governing an expanding realm for centuries. When this system finally broke down in the civil wars of the 1st century BCE, Augustus created a new hybrid system, the Principate, that preserved republican forms while establishing de facto monarchical power. This pragmatic adaptation allowed Rome to overcome the internal contradictions that might otherwise have ended its expansion. Economic integration represented another crucial element of Roman expansion. A common currency, standardized weights and measures, reduced trade barriers, and improved transportation all contributed to creating history's largest free trade zone. Evidence of this integration appears in archaeological finds throughout the empire: African pottery in Britain, Spanish olive oil in Germany, Syrian glassware in Gaul. This economic interconnection benefited both Rome and its provinces, creating shared prosperity that underpinned political loyalty. Alongside these material factors, Rome developed sophisticated ideological justifications for its rule. The concept of the Pax Romana, Roman peace, emphasized stability, prosperity, and security under Roman governance. Writers like Virgil articulated Rome's manifest destiny in works such as the Aeneid, while state-sponsored art and architecture reinforced messages of Roman power and benevolence. Religious syncretism, the identification of local deities with Roman gods, facilitated cultural integration, while the imperial cult provided a unifying focus for provincial loyalty. Rome's expansion faced significant challenges, including resistance from indigenous populations, overextension of resources, and administrative corruption. Provincial revolts, such as Boudicca's rebellion in Britain, the Batavian revolt on the Rhine, and Jewish uprisings in Judea, demonstrated the limits of accommodation. Environmental factors also constrained Roman expansion, with dense forests, mountainous terrain, and desert regions posing logistical challenges that even Roman engineering could not always overcome. This complex, multifaceted approach to expansion created an empire of unprecedented size and longevity. By balancing military power with political incorporation, cultural flexibility with institutional standardization, Rome created a sustainable imperial system that endured for centuries. This achievement represents not merely conquest, but a sophisticated model of governance that has influenced subsequent empires and nation-states down to the present day. If you were a Roman leader, how would you expand the empire? Would you let Rome grow little by little, or would you conquer everything at once? Pause the video and leave your theory in the comments. Oh, and while we're here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Legacy of Empires channel. Roman culture developed through a complex synthesis of indigenous Latin traditions, Etruscan influences, and Hellenistic imports. This cultural amalgamation created a distinctive civilization that both borrowed extensively from others and transformed these borrowings into uniquely Roman expressions. Understanding these cultural and mythical elements provides crucial insight into how Romans viewed themselves and justified their expanding power. Roman religion represented a sophisticated system blending state ritual, domestic worship, and eventually imperial cult practices. Initially influenced by Etruscan religious customs, Roman religion centered around the concept of maintaining proper relations with the gods through correct ritual observance rather than personal faith or moral behavior. The primary deities included Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Minerva, and Juno, collectively forming what scholars call the Capitoline Triad, and later the Dii Consentes. Religious rituals were inseparable from political life. The College of Pontiffs, headed by the Pontifex Maximus, oversaw state religious functions and maintained the complex calendar of festivals. Religious officials, known as augurs, interpreted signs from the gods, particularly the flight patterns of birds, before any major public undertaking. Generals seeking omens before battle, magistrates requiring divine sanction for assemblies, and even private citizens making important decisions all consulted religious specialists. The intricate system of divination involved examining animal entrails, particularly livers, for divine messages, a practice adopted directly from the Etruscans. The integration of religion and politics appears most clearly in the concept of the templum, a ritually defined space necessary for valid political decisions. The Senate could only pass binding legislation in a templum, usually a building consecrated to a deity. This inseparability of religious and political authority helped legitimize Rome's governance system and expansion, as military victories were interpreted as divine endorsement of Roman actions. Roman mythology played a crucial role in constructing the city's identity. The foundational myth of Romulus and Remus, twin brothers nursed by a she-wolf, connected Rome to both divine ancestry and a destined greatness. After founding the city, Romulus established key Roman institutions, including the Senate, and through the rape of the Sabine women, ensured Rome's demographic future. A myth that uncomfortably reveals patriarchal attitudes, normalizing violence against women. Later, mythological elaborations, particularly during the Augustan age, connected Rome to the broader Greco-Roman mythological tradition. Virgil's Aeneid traced Rome's origins to the Trojan hero Aeneas, a son of Venus who escaped Troy's destruction and eventually settled in Latium. This origin story accomplished multiple goals. It connected Rome to the prestigious Homeric tradition, established divine ancestry through Venus, and created a predestined narrative for Rome's greatness. Augustus skillfully used this mythological framework to position his own rule as the fulfillment of Rome's destiny. Beyond founding myths, Romans maintained legends of exemplary figures whose virtues embodied ideal Roman character. Stories of Cincinnatus leaving his plough to serve as dictator before voluntarily relinquishing power, Lucretia's suicide after sexual violation that sparked the overthrow of monarchy, and Horatius defending a bridge against Etruscan invaders, all provided moral exemplar that shaped Roman self-conception. These legends, whether historically accurate or not, reinforced values of duty, sacrifice, and honor that Romans considered essential to their identity. Roman social structure reflected an extremely hierarchical organization that nevertheless contained mechanisms for limited social mobility and conflict resolution. At the apex stood the senatorial aristocracy, followed by the equestrian order, ordinary citizens, freedmen, and slaves. This hierarchy was visibly marked through distinctive clothing, particularly the toga, with its purple stripes indicating senatorial rank, residential patterns, and legal privileges. The tension between patricians and plebeians drove much of early Roman political development. The plebeians' struggle for rights led to the creation of the tribunes of the plebs in 494 BCE, officials with sacrosanct authority who could veto legislation and protect individual plebeians from patrician abuse. The gradual admission of plebeians to magistracies, culminating in the Licinian Sextian laws of 367 BCE, allowing plebeian consuls, represented a pragmatic accommodation that preserved social hierarchy while allowing limited advancement. This balance of forces, combining rigid hierarchical structure with mechanisms for addressing grievances, helped prevent major revolts for centuries. Roman cultural life encompassed sophisticated literary, artistic, architectural, and philosophical traditions that evolved significantly over time. Early Roman culture, heavily influenced by Etruscan models, emphasized practical engineering, religious observance, and military virtues. As contact with Greek civilization increased, particularly after the conquest of Greece in the 2nd century BCE, Roman elites enthusiastically adopted Hellenistic cultural forms while adapting them to Roman sensibilities. Literature exemplifies this cultural synthesis. Early Roman writers like Livius Andronicus translated Greek works while pioneering Latin literary forms. Playwrights Plautus and Terence adapted Greek comedies for Roman audiences, introducing stock characters and situations that would influence European comedy for centuries. During the late Republic and early Empire, writers like Cicero, Virgil, Horace, and Ovid created sophisticated works that both drew on Greek models and established distinctive Latin literary traditions. This golden age of Latin literature reflects Rome's self-confident cultural maturity, celebrating Roman achievements while acknowledging Greek influence. Roman visual arts similarly combined Greek aesthetics with distinctively Roman elements. Sculpture initially copied Greek models directly, but gradually developed more realistic portraiture that emphasized individual character over idealized beauty. Wall paintings preserved at Pompeii and Herculaneum demonstrate sophisticated perspective techniques and narrative compositions decorating elite homes. Mosaics adorned floors with both mythological scenes and everyday activities, while public monuments celebrated military victories and imperial achievements. The reliefs on Trajan's column, spiraling upward with detailed scenes from the Dacian Wars, exemplify Rome's distinctive historical narrative art. Architecture perhaps best represents Rome's cultural genius. While adopting Greek orders and temple formats, Romans transformed building practices through innovations like concrete construction, the arch, and the dome. Structures such as the Colosseum, Pantheon, and massive bath complexes demonstrated engineering skill that enabled previously impossible interior spaces. Practical constructions, aqueducts, bridges, harbors, and roads revealed values prioritizing utility and durability alongside aesthetic considerations. Roman philosophical thought primarily adapted Greek schools, particularly Stoicism, Epicureanism, and Platonism, to Roman contexts. Cicero's philosophical dialogues introduced Greek concepts using Roman examples, while Seneca's essays applied Stoic principles to practical Roman concerns. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations represents the pinnacle of Roman Stoicism, revealing how Greek philosophical ideas informed Roman governance at the highest levels. This philosophical borrowing demonstrates Roman pragmatism, adopting useful intellectual frameworks while adapting them to Roman needs. Everyday Roman cultural life centered around distinctive social institutions and practices. The client-patron relationship created vertical social bonds across class lines, with wealthy patrons providing protection and support to clients who offered political loyalty and services in return. The daily salutatio, where clients greeted patrons each morning, reinforced these hierarchical connections. Public bathing created spaces for social mixing, business discussions, and cultural exchange in elaborately designed facilities. The practice of convivium established important social connections while demonstrating status through food, entertainment, and surroundings. This rich cultural tapestry provided Romans with both a strong sense of identity and flexible mechanisms for incorporating conquered peoples. By allowing provincial elites to participate in Roman cultural practices while respecting certain local traditions, Rome created pathways for integration that strengthened imperial cohesion. The adaptive nature of Roman culture, simultaneously conservative in values and innovative in expression, helps explain both Rome's successful expansion and its enduring influence on Western civilization. As Rome expanded from a city-state to an empire, it experienced profound internal challenges that ultimately transformed its political structure. The Republic, designed for governing a single city and its immediate surroundings, struggled to adapt to the complexities of administering vast territories across 3 continents. This tension between Rome's traditional institutions and its imperial reality ultimately led to a century of civil conflict and revolutionary change. By the mid-2nd century BCE, Rome's spectacular military successes began generating severe social and economic distortions. The influx of slave labor from conquered territories undermined small farmers who had traditionally formed the backbone of Rome's citizen armies. Vast wealth from provincial plunder and taxation concentrated in the hands of senatorial elites, creating unprecedented economic inequality. Massive estates replaced independent family farms across Italy, creating a growing class of urban poor with limited economic opportunities. The Gracchi brothers, Tiberius and Gaius, were the first to address these systemic problems through legislative reform. Born to the highest aristocracy, their mother Cornelia was daughter of Scipio Africanus. They nonetheless recognized the existential threat posed by Rome's growing inequalities. Tiberius proposed land redistribution to restore the small farmer class, while Gaius expanded the agenda to include subsidized grain, colony foundations, and political reforms, strengthening equestrian power against senatorial dominance. The violent deaths of both brothers, Tiberius clubbed to death by senators during an election, Gaius driven to suicide while his supporters were massacred, revealed the Roman elite's resistance to systemic reform. More importantly, these episodes normalized political violence as a means of resolving constitutional disputes. The sanctity of tribunes, previously considered inviolable, had been fatally compromised. This precedent would enable ever-escalating cycles of violence in subsequent decades. Military reforms under Marius further destabilized the Republic. By opening legion recruitment to propertyless citizens, Marius created a professional army dependent on its generals for land settlements upon retirement. This shifted soldiers' loyalty from the state to individual commanders, undermining civilian control of military forces. The Marian reforms, while militarily necessary for Rome's continued expansion, created the conditions for armies to become political weapons in factional disputes. The devastating social war between Rome and its Italian allies added another layer of tension. These communities, which had contributed blood and treasure to Rome's conquests for generations, demanded full citizenship rather than subordinate allied status. After a bitter conflict, Rome ultimately granted citizenship to all free Italians, fundamentally altering the Roman body politic. This expansion of citizenship, while ultimately strengthening Rome, created short-term political volatility as new citizens integrated into existing power structures. The rivalry between Marius and Sulla escalated these tensions to unprecedented levels. When Sulla marched his legions on Rome in 88 BCE, the first Roman commander to turn his army against the city itself, he shattered the Republic's most fundamental taboo. Though Sulla eventually restored senatorial authority and retired as dictator, his example demonstrated that military power could overcome constitutional constraints. The decades following Sulla's dictatorship saw the Republic's gradual disintegration through three overlapping crises: the challenge of piracy and Eastern wars requiring extended commands, the Catilinarian conspiracy revealing widespread disaffection among indebted elites, and the rise of populist politicians like Clodius, who mobilized urban masses through increasingly violent methods. The formation of the first triumvirate in 60 BCE demonstrated that power now resided with military commanders rather than traditional constitutional offices. Julius Caesar's rise epitomized these transformative tensions. His conquest of Gaul provided him unprecedented wealth, military experience, and a loyal army. When threatened with prosecution upon his return to Rome, Caesar famously crossed the Rubicon River in 49 BCE, igniting civil war. His famous statement, "The die is cast," acknowledged the irreversible nature of challenging the Republic's foundations. Caesar's eventual victory over Pompey and the Optimates enabled sweeping reforms that signaled the Republic's effective end. As dictator perpetuo, Caesar centralized authority, expanded citizenship, reformed the calendar, and initiated massive building projects. However, his accumulation of unprecedented powers and honors, including quasi-divine status, alarmed traditionalists who saw him becoming a monarch in all but name. This tension culminated in his assassination on March 15, 44 BCE, by a conspiracy of approximately 60 senators, including his former protégé Brutus. Rather than restoring the Republic, Caesar's assassination plunged Rome into another round of civil wars. The Second Triumvirate initially cooperated to defeat Caesar's assassins at Philippi in 42 BCE, then turned against one another. The final confrontation between Octavian and Antony, complicated by Antony's relationship with Cleopatra VII of Egypt, ended with Octavian's decisive victory at Actium in 31 BCE. This extended period of civil conflict revealed fundamental contradictions in the republican system. Rome had evolved into an empire without developing appropriate governance structures. Traditional checks and balances, designed for a city-state, proved inadequate for governing provinces across the Mediterranean. Competition among elites, once channeled through electoral politics, had become militarized with devastating consequences. The Roman people, exhausted by decades of violence and uncertainty, increasingly prioritized stability over republican liberty. Octavian, renamed Augustus in 27 BCE, brilliantly resolved these tensions through constitutional innovation rather than outright revolution. His settlement maintained republican forms, the Senate continued to meet, elections were still held, traditional magistracies remained. While concentrating real power in his hands through a combination of powers, including tribunician authority, proconsular imperium, and religious leadership as Pontifex Maximus. This arrangement, known as the Principate, satisfied elite desire for continuity while addressing popular demands for stability. Augustus's solution proved remarkably enduring. By respecting traditional forms while fundamentally altering their substance, he enabled a relatively peaceful transition from republic to empire. His reign brought the Pax Romana, economic prosperity, and cultural flourishing that many Romans welcomed after generations of civil strife. The new system resolved tensions between Rome's imperial reality and its governance structures, creating sustainable mechanisms for administering vast territories. The story of Rome's transition from republic to empire reveals how internal tensions, rather than external threats, often drive revolutionary change. Economic inequalities, institutional inadequacies, and elite competition interacted to transform Rome's governance over generations. What makes this transformation particularly fascinating is its evolutionary rather than revolutionary character. The empire emerged gradually from the republic's contradictions rather than through a single revolutionary moment. This evolutionary adaptation helps explain both Rome's resilience and the enduring influence of its political models on subsequent civilizations. The Roman Empire shaped the world in myriad ways, creating an enduring legacy that continues to influence modern society across multiple domains. From law to language, from urban planning to political theory, Roman innovations established foundations upon which subsequent civilizations built their own achievements. Roman law represents perhaps the most significant intellectual legacy of the empire. The Corpus Juris Civilis, compiled under Emperor Justinian in the 6th century CE, preserved and systematized centuries of Roman legal development. This comprehensive code introduced fundamental concepts still central to modern jurisprudence. The distinction between public and private law, sophisticated contract principles, property rights frameworks, and procedural safeguards. Civil law systems, used today in countries across continental Europe, Latin America, and parts of Africa and Asia, derive directly from Roman legal traditions. Even common law jurisdictions like the United States and United Kingdom incorporate numerous Roman legal principles, particularly in contract and property law. The very concept of legal reasoning, applying general principles to specific cases through logical analysis, derives substantially from Roman juristic methods. Infrastructure stands as Rome's most visible legacy. The extensive road network, over 250,000 miles at its peak, established transportation corridors that shaped European development for centuries. Medieval trade routes, Military campaigns and pilgrim paths followed Roman roads, while modern highways often occupy the same corridors. Roman engineering techniques for road construction, including multiple layers of different materials for drainage and durability, influenced transportation infrastructure into the modern era. Similarly, Roman aqueduct technology, bridge construction methods, and urban sanitation systems provided models that were studied and adapted by engineers from the Renaissance through the Industrial Revolution. Roman architectural innovations transformed the built environment permanently. The use of concrete, particularly the durable hydraulic concrete that enabled harbor construction and massive structures like the Pantheon, revolutionized construction techniques. The Roman arch and vault system allowed for unprecedented interior spaces, while standardized architectural elements facilitated efficient building across the empire. Classical architectural forms established by Romans continue to influence government buildings, educational institutions, and civic structures worldwide. The concept of monumental public architecture expressing political power derives substantially from Roman examples. Urbanization patterns established under Roman rule shaped European settlement for millennia. The grid plan with Cardo and Decumanus thoroughfares established orderly urban development replicated in countless colonial cities from the Spanish Americas to French North Africa. Roman concepts of civic space, the forum combining political, commercial, religious, and social functions, influenced town planning through the ages. Public amenities like baths, theaters, and markets established expectations for urban services that eventually evolved into modern municipal governance. The very concept of a city as an administrative center with defined legal status originates in Roman practice. Linguistically, Rome's impact extends far beyond Latin's direct descendants. While Romance languages evolved directly from Vulgar Latin, Latin's influence on English and other Germanic languages remains profound through centuries of ecclesiastical, scientific, and legal borrowing. An estimated 60% of English vocabulary derives from Latin roots, either directly or through French. Medical and scientific terminology worldwide relies on Latin naming conventions. Legal phrases like habeas corpus, pro bono, and sine qua non remain in active use. Beyond vocabulary, Latin grammar influenced the development of standardized written languages across Europe during critical formative periods. Roman political concepts fundamentally shaped Western governance traditions. While not a democracy in the modern sense, Rome's Republican period established crucial precedents: checks and balances between different government branches, term limits for office holders, codified citizenship rights, and representative institutions. The concept of imperium, legitimate authority exercised by properly appointed officials, established foundational principles of political legitimacy. Later, imperial governance provided models for centralized administration of diverse territories that influenced Byzantine, Holy Roman, and subsequent European empires. The very term Senate continues in use from the United States to France, from Canada to Italy. Cultural and literary traditions established under Rome continue to shape Western aesthetics and education. The classical canon, works by Virgil, Cicero, Ovid, Horace, and others, defined literary standards and educational curricula for centuries. Medieval European education centered on mastering these texts, while Renaissance humanism explicitly revived Roman models in literature, oratory, and philosophy. Neoclassical movements periodically reassert Roman aesthetic principles, from Renaissance architecture to 18th century political thought to 20th century artistic revivals. The concept of a humanistic education based on rhetoric, grammar, and logical analysis derives from Roman educational practices. Religious developments under Rome transformed world history. While Rome did not create Christianity, the empire provided critical conditions for its spread: extensive road networks, common languages, urban centers, and eventually official patronage. Constantine's conversion and the subsequent Christianization of the empire established patterns of church-state relations that dominated European history for a millennium. Roman administrative divisions became ecclesiastical provinces, while Roman basilica architecture established templates for church construction. Later, Roman organizational structures influenced Islamic administrative practices in territories formerly under Roman rule. Agricultural techniques and food crops disseminated under Roman rule permanently altered European foodways. The Roman villa system, large agricultural estates using innovative farming methods, established efficient production models later adapted by medieval manners. Romans spread cultivation techniques and crops throughout their territories: grapes for wine in France and Germany, olives in North Africa and Spain, improved grain varieties across Europe. The Mediterranean triad of wheat, olives and grapes, with associated processing technologies for bread, oil and wine, became foundational to European diets through Roman dissemination. Economic practices developed under Rome established precedents for later commercial systems. Standardized currency facilitated trade across vast territories, while Roman banking practices including loans, interest and investment partnerships established financial precedents. Contract forms for everything from shipping partnerships to construction projects provided models adapted by later commercial societies. The concept of corporations as legal entities distinct from their members derives partially from Roman precedents like municipal corporations and tax farming companies. Recent archaeological discoveries have continuously expanded our understanding of Roman daily life, revealing remarkable sophistication in urban planning, diet, and social organization. Excavations at Pompeii, Herculaneum, and Ostia Antica provide unparalleled windows into ordinary Roman experiences. New techniques including ground-penetrating radar, isotope analysis of skeletal remains, and advanced preservation methods have revealed previously unknown aspects of Roman life. DNA analysis of ancient remains demonstrates population movement and diversity within the empire, while paleopathology studies reveal health patterns and medical practices. Archaeological findings at sites across the former empire, from Vindolanda to Jerash, from Leptis Magna to Aquincum, demonstrate how Roman urban planning principles were adapted to diverse environments while maintaining consistent features. Recent discoveries have revised understanding of Roman technological achievement, revealing sophisticated water management systems, industrial-scale manufacturing, and precision engineering that exceeded previous estimates. Evidence of extensive trade networks, African pottery in Britain, Chinese silk in Roman Egypt, Baltic amber in Italy, demonstrates globalization centuries before the modern era. The expression, "all roads lead to Rome," reflects not just literal infrastructure, but Rome's centrality to Western historical development. Ideas, technologies, and institutions that originated or were perfected under Roman governance established templates that subsequent societies adopted, adapted, and transmitted across generations. What makes Rome's legacy particularly remarkable is its longevity and breadth, impacting fields from jurisprudence to engineering, from linguistics to political theory, from agriculture to urban planning. This enduring influence stems partly from Rome's pragmatic genius for synthesizing diverse traditions into functional systems. By adapting Greek philosophy, Etruscan engineering, Egyptian administrative techniques, and countless local practices from conquered territories, Rome created resilient institutions and technologies well-suited for wider adoption. The empire's longevity, nearly 1,500 years counting the Byzantine continuation, allowed these innovations to become deeply embedded in European civilization and subsequently spread globally through European colonial expansion. Rome's legacy thus represents a complex transmission chain, innovations developed through cultural synthesis, preserved through institutional continuity, revived through periodic renaissances, and ultimately globalized through European expansion. This multi-layered legacy continues evolving as each generation reinterprets Roman achievements through contemporary needs and perspectives. Rome's transformation from a modest city-state to a global empire represents one of history's most remarkable achievements, a journey marked by military victories, political intrigue, cultural evolution, and institutional innovation. As we reflect on this extraordinary ascent, we must consider what truly enabled Roman success. Was it their superior military organization, their political adaptability, or perhaps their resilient culture that endured through centuries? The Roman achievement becomes even more impressive when we consider their starting point. From a small settlement on the Tiber River, Rome developed systems of governance, military organization, and cultural integration that allowed them to rule territories from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Syria. This unprecedented success raises fundamental questions about the nature of empire building and societal development that remain relevant today. Military prowess certainly played a crucial role. The Roman legion represented the ancient world's most sophisticated military organization, combining discipline, flexibility, and technological innovation. Yet military might alone cannot explain Rome's longevity. Other ancient empires possessed powerful armies but failed to achieve Rome's durability. The Roman genius lay in combining military strength with political incorporation, creating stakeholders rather than merely subjects in conquered territories. Political adaptability stands as another crucial factor. Rome's ability to evolve its institutions from monarchy to republic to empire, while maintaining core cultural values, demonstrated remarkable flexibility. The Romans pragmatically absorbed useful elements from conquered peoples while maintaining their distinctive identity. This balance between adaptation and tradition helped Rome avoid the rigid patterns that often led other empires to stagnation and collapse. Cultural resilience perhaps represents Rome's most significant achievement. They created a civilization that people actively sought to join rather than merely endure. Through a combination of practical benefits and cultural prestige, Rome generated voluntary participation in imperial systems. This cultural magnetism helped maintain imperial cohesion with relatively limited military presence in many regions. Innovation in administration and infrastructure supported this cultural appeal. The Roman road network, aqueducts, and urban planning created physical frameworks for imperial integration. Standardized legal systems provided predictability for commerce and personal status across vast territories. Administrative flexibility allowed local autonomy while maintaining overall imperial coherence. These practical achievements made Roman rule tangibly beneficial for provincial populations. The Roman legacy persists in numerous forms today. Our legal systems, political institutions, architectural styles, and even languages bear Roman imprints. Urban planning still follows patterns established under Roman governance. Educational curricula continue emphasizing skills valued in Roman society. Modern nations still grapple with challenges of governing diverse populations that Romans addressed centuries ago. Looking back at Rome's remarkable journey, we can identify crucial factors in their success. Military excellence combined with political incorporation, cultural flexibility balanced with strong identity, and practical innovation supporting administrative efficiency. Yet perhaps their greatest achievement was creating systems robust enough to survive in various forms long after the empire's political dissolution. What lessons does Rome's experience offer our contemporary world? As modern societies face challenges of integration, governance, and cultural exchange, Roman solutions may provide valuable insights. Their pragmatic approach to diversity, emphasis on practical infrastructure, and balance between central authority and local autonomy offer relevant models for current challenges. So what was Rome's greatest legacy? Was it their architectural achievements that still inspire awe, their legal systems that shape modern jurisprudence, their military strategies studied in contemporary war colleges, or perhaps their cultural synthesis that demonstrated how diverse peoples could participate in a common civilization while maintaining local identities? If this epic story of Rome's rise has captured your imagination, share it with friends who love exploring historical mysteries. And don't forget to subscribe to the Legacy of Empires channel for more incredible stories from history's greatest civilizations. Let us know in the comments, what do you think was Rome's most important contribution to world history? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this fascinating civilization that continues to influence our world today.